What's up, everyone? My name is Ethan. This is Courtside TV. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and let's get into it. So today, I wanted to talk about Aaron Gordon and the Denver Nuggets. Does this Aaron Gordon trade that the Nuggets made make them a title contender? Because that's been a question on a lot of people's minds over the last little while. They have not lost a game since the trade deadline, since they acquired Aaron Gordon. I believe it's 8 in a row now, 7 or 8 in a row. So they're on a big winning streak, and it's been crazy to watch them go. They kind of started off the season a little slow, a little up and down, but they've been rolling lately, and they could legitimately be in play for the NBA title. So first of all, this Gordon move there's a reason that a lot of people had their ears up kind of watching for this one, just because it seems to fit completely perfectly. Gordon is exactly the guy that the Nuggets needed. Honestly, he's that perfect, he can kind of slide into that Jeremy Grant role from last year, but personally I think he's probably a little bit better for what they do than Jeremy Grant. Now we've seen Grant have a big scoring output this year with the Detroit Pistons, but Gordon is a guy who can fill in all the gaps. He's been shown to have good defensive instincts at times. He hasn't always been the most consistent defender when he was with Orlando, but I think he's been pretty good so far in his time with the Nuggets, and he has certainly the skill set for it, and so it just is a matter of getting him to buy in, and so far he's done that. And so defensively, I think he fills in the gaps for them. He can hit shots, he can play make a little bit. He just does all those little things at that power forward spot that I think really open up the floor for Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray and even Michael Porter Jr., who's been playing really well over the last little while. So they have a lot of weapons. They just added another one here. And this is a team that I think they're well coached. I think they know how to play together. They've had a lot of guys who have been there for a long time, and so they're kind of all used to each other. And Gordon is just coming in here and plugging right into that lineup, and everything is clicking perfectly. There's been no adjustment period. There's been no kind of testing the waters and trying to work out the kinks and stuff. They just completely hit the ground running with him in the lineup. There's been nothing to worry about whatsoever, and so they have really put themselves back in the conversation for the title, because last year they ran up against the Lakers in the conference finals, and they didn't quite have enough to get over that hump there. But I think they're definitely a better team this season, and with the league looking a little more wide open than it has in the past couple of years, I think this could be a season where Denver really breaks through. But if you wanted to play the other side of this, you could, kind of compare it to last year's team and say, well, I guess you could argue that Aaron Gordon's a better player than Jeremy Grant, but how much better is he, and how much better does it make them? If they couldn't beat the Lakers last year, what makes you think they're going to do it this year? And honestly, that's a fair argument. And then you could kind of poke holes in their little winning streak here. They haven't beaten too many great teams. It's New Orleans, Atlanta, who are both okay. The Sixers, I believe that was before Embiid came back. They played the Clippers without Paul George, I think, was out that night. Kawhi might have been out too. Paul George was at least out for sure, and they won that game. And then it's the Magic, the Pistons, and 2 games against the Spurs, who've been really struggling. So, it's not like they're world beaters here. They've kind of beat some okay teams, some bad teams, and then some good teams who were missing players. So they have a next stretch here that is at least a little bit more challenging. Their next 3 games are Celtics, at Warriors, and then home versus the Miami Heat. Then they have a couple of easier ones, and then back to Portland, Golden State. In a little while, they play both LA teams on a trip to LA. So they have a couple of tests coming up here, right? A couple of okay teams that they can go up against here, and kind of see where they're stacking up. So we'll have to see how they play over the next couple of weeks, and if they can continue to keep this winning streak going, and obviously if they keep ripping off wins and beat a ton of teams in a row, then you kind of got to take them seriously. But you can poke holes in their win streak and the things that they've done so far this year, but honestly I think they're a pretty good team. I mean, honestly, people aren't really talking about it because it's Denver. It's a relatively small market. People haven't really been talking about this team a lot. But Jokic is playing at an MVP level. He might be the MVP frontrunner right now, especially given the injuries to some of the other top candidates. He's been healthy all year and has been playing at an incredibly high level. So I think that a lot of people would consider him to be the favorite for the MVP. We'll have to see how the rest of the season plays out, of course. And you've got Jamal Murray, who had kind of a slow start to the year, but he's been playing a little better recently. Michael Porter Jr. has come a long way in his, I guess this is his second healthy season, his 3rd season in the league, maybe 4th, I'm not even sure. But this is really, the first extended stretch that we're seeing him healthy and getting consistent rotation minutes, and he's been awesome. Where, pretty much all season this year, he's been really, he's improved on a lot of the stuff that he was struggling with in the bubble last season. specifically defensively, and he's just scoring at every level, and he's just looking like the guy that a lot of people had projected him to be out of college, right? Because he was a really highly projected, he was going to go like 1 or 2 or 3 had the injury concerns not been there, but he had a lot of back issues, and I believe he had some lower leg stuff going on, and so there was a lot of teams understandably kind of backing off in terms of taking him. They just kind of weren't willing to deal with the injury stuff. The Nuggets were like, hey, we're at the very end of the lottery, let's just do it. And I think it's worked out. He's passed with flying colors at this point. He obviously missed some time at the start of his career, but now that he's been healthy, he's just been awesome. And to get a guy like that in the late lottery, I mean, he really does have all-star potential. I know a lot of people have not really been talking about him a lot, but he's been a great player for the Nuggets this season. In terms of where they're at in the standings, they're, same in the loss column as the LA Clippers. The Clippers have played 2 more games and have 2 more wins than they have. But in terms of losses, they're right there with the Clippers for the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. So they're right up there at the top. I think they could potentially overtake the Clippers here in the coming days, assuming that they continue to play well, of course. And they're only 3 games back of the Suns for number 2, which means that is 5.5 back from the Jazz for number 1. So the number 1 seed is probably, not in play for them at this point, and I don't think they're going to tire themselves out trying to go for the 1 seed, because I don't expect the Jazz to slip for the rest of the year. But maybe the 2 could be in play if you can get ahead of Phoenix. I think for certain the 3, you can try to get up to number 3 and potentially pass LA there. And that would allow them to potentially avoid the Lakers or the Clippers in the first round, which I think would be good. You would end up with, maybe Dallas or Portland or whoever ends up down there. So I think that should be, a motivating factor to try to avoid that 4-5 matchup, because that looks like it'll be tough. 3-6 is probably a little bit easier. So I think the Nuggets are right there, and I think they have definitely the possibility to jump up and go above the Clippers, assuming, of course, that they continue to play this well, and there's really no reason to believe that they won't. So the question, are the Nuggets a contender? I say yes. I think they're absolutely a contender for the NBA title. Now, I would still have the Lakers as my favorite in the West, and I would potentially have maybe 1 or 2 teams also above Denver, but I think they're right there in terms of top 5 teams in the West, and I know that's kind of a lot of teams to have as contenders in a conference, but honestly, I think that there is that many this season. I think you're looking at Jazz, Suns, Clippers, Nuggets, and Lakers. I think all 5 of those teams can definitely win the title this year, especially if LA's injuries concerns and stuff continue to happen. I kind of talked about that, a couple of days ago in that Lakers video, but the Nuggets definitely have a chance here. I think they're right there with all these other teams. And yes, they're a contender for the title, assuming that they can, at the very least, they're a contender to make the NBA Finals, make their own conference finals. I think they're right there with all these other teams. So the Aaron Gordon trade has unlocked something in them that gives them that sort of X factor, right, where they really feel like a basketball team that is capable of achieving really high heights. Before, it kind of felt like, okay, well, really how far can they go? Their ceiling probably isn't super high. I think this Aaron Gordon trade, while it might seem like a marginal move to some people, I really do think that this one has definitely raised their championship ceiling. And he's under contract for this year and next, so they have a little while to build this thing and potentially re-sign him or whatever. This is a young core. Jokic is only like 26, Jamal Murray like 24, 25, and Gordon himself is only like 25 or 26, something like that. So they have a couple of years here, assuming that they can keep the band together. This could be a team that we see at the top of the conference for a long time. But yeah, I think that's about all I have on the Denver Nuggets and the Aaron Gordon deal. Like I said at the top of the video, if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, ring the bell if you want to. Leave a comment letting me know what you guys think about Aaron Gordon and this trade to the Nuggets. Are they title contenders? Would love to hear your thoughts down below. But with all that said, see you guys in the next one.